Perfect. Okay, recording is starting. All right, Achini. Hey, what's up?
What's up?
All we want to do right now, I just want to hear from you. So just introduce yourself to the podcast, all our listeners here.
Hello, my name is Achini Perera. I've been playing. Oh my legs. Hold on. I've been playing cricket for about 10 years now. I started playing when I was around 6. I play international cricket as well as like national right now. And yeah.
Yeah, Achini knows what's up. This girl's an absolute scholar and absolute crazy athlete. For those of you who don't know, Achini and I went to high school together. Bill Crothers, BCSS, gotta plug them a bit. Um, and Achini was playing sports all over, left, right, and center. But today we're talking more about cricket and more about just her experience as an athlete. So let's dive in. Talk to us about your life growing up as an athlete and playing cricket and what that was like.
So growing up playing cricket, I started around when I was like 6. My older brother started playing first. My dad played first class cricket in Sri Lanka, so he stopped when he had kids, so he kind of moved it over to my brother and I. What's my earliest memory? I would say, oh my gosh, my legs again. My earliest memory, I would say for cricket would be me putting on like my brother's equipment. So like his equipment is a little bigger than me, right? I'm a small guy as it is. And I would wear like our leg guards will come up to like my hips, but I'll still wear it. I would mimic everything he would do. And be like, you could do it, I could do it too. And I think that like really motivated me like growing up. Also I played majority of my like cricket career growing up was playing against men. And I think that really shaped who I was, as an athlete, and I kind of ended up going towards different sports as well and like kind of having more confidence too. And then I was introduced into women's cricket when I was 11. I got scouted towards the Cricket Canada trials. So when I was 12, I was on alternate for our world qualifiers in Ireland. So in 2012, and I was supposed to be there, as in the team, but I was put as an alternate because they said I was too young. But looking back at it now, it's like, age isn't much. I think I was at my like true prime. When I was 12, my prime was like up there, man. Like when I was playing cricket then, bro, when you're 12, 13, 14, like your like athletic ability is up like at par. Like how we are like now, like when we're 20, like you really feel it now, bro. Like I don't know about you.
100%. 100%.
You really feel it now, man. And like as soon as I hit like 18, 19, I was like, wow, like I really feel it. It's not like Crothers, Bill Crothers, we'd be playing all the time. We could train like in the morning, evening, and like night, but we'd be like fine the next morning. Then after that, like it hit 18, 19, bro, it's like, whoa, it hurts. It hurts, bro. It really does.
Getting
It's
old.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, after I hit women's cricket when I was 11, I got scouted towards Cricket Canada. And then after the world qualifiers, it was there. I didn't get to go to Ireland, but I still ended up, gaining some, like, I was like, wow, like I made it at least, and that was like a good point for me to start with, I think, like for my career. As soon as I got like that kind of platform, I kind of moved to gaining more experience like overseas. So I toured when I was 14. I toured to Sri Lanka on my own with my dad. So he knows cricket there. It's ideal. Like that's where it's at. Like the top countries I would say is Australia, England, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, India. Those are the top countries where if you could play cricket there, bro, like the experience that you would like gain is crazy. It's like it's a huge difference. I'm going there. I was like, whoa, this is huge. The girls practice every day. Every day, like morning to night. Like they would go in the sun, like bro, like it was hot there too. It's hot in those countries. No, going from cricket, like for cricket in Canada, like it's kind of cold. It's okay. And then you go to like all these countries where it's blaring hot every day, and you have to stay in like one typical inning. I don't know if you know, Ray, but like one typical inning is like about an hour and a half, and then there's 2 innings, right? So it's a 3 hour game every time. Like that's our shortest, right? Or format.
Jeez.
And for us to go and for me to like experience that heat too was an eye opener too, man, like for sure. And like you would think you're the fittest out there, and then once you get to like the blaring heat, you're like, yo, doesn't matter about fitness as much now, you
A
know?
100%. Environment change alone. You're like, it doesn't matter how good I am right now. I need to get used to this first.
100%, 100%. So that was an eye opener too. I think after I went from there, I played like that was like the one of their top leagues. So I was like the youngest to play in Sri Lanka at the time, like as an overseas player as well as like domestic too, which
That's
was it was
awesome.
like a huge like accomplishment for myself as well. So then I kind of kept moving forward from there. Where did I go after? Let me fix this light situation.
All good.
Okay. All right. Where did I go after that? I got a few opportunities with is we kind of have an organization called Can-Am. So it's kind of like Canada and America kind of combined. Because like the opportunities are kind of there and kind of not there, like in Canada sometimes, you know, in Americas for cricket. So there was a woman named Julie Abbott. She kind of made an organization of both North Americas and South Americas combined to make one team. So from there, we went to England. We toured in the US as well. They toured to Argentina. I wasn't there. I was in school at the time, no brothers. I couldn't go at that time. But they toured a couple places. I went with them. I gained a lot of experience. Like the difference between like domestic cricket versus, you know, international cricket, like you see the huge jump. And I think like I would like recommend to like, anyone, any athlete, I would say, going overseas and to see the difference for sure. You know, you see whether it's athletic ability and especially like mental toughness of those athletes overseas, bro. Like I'm telling you, like the difference is unreal. Like they start with mental toughness. They start with like, you know, you could be the best player there. Like they'll tell you straight up, they're like, you could be the best player it is, but if you're not fit, you're not for it. Like they'll tell you, you know, and it's good, you know. Like I kind of feel like sometimes it's kind of sugar coated, and we don't really need sugar coating, bro. Like I know as women, I think a lot of the time I kind of sugarcoat it, but why sugarcoat it, bro? Like, we could take it too. As soon as you realize that you can take it, like you can end up going so much higher than what you thought you could. You know?
That's awesome. I'm just gonna interrupt you there
Yeah.
because you're touching on some great points here. Mental toughness for sure. I trust me, I relate because I know I grew up playing hockey. So when I was playing hockey and I was training with my brother and my brother's teams, and then they're all guys,
Yeah.
and like they'd like put me at the back of the line because they're like, let the guys go first, kind of thing. Or even if I was just learning or something and didn't know something, for sure they'd give another kid who's like a guy the opportunity before me because they're like let's see him do it first, that
Yeah.
kind of mentality. And it's like, who cares if we fail or who cares if it doesn't work out? The end of the day, we have to learn, and you shouldn't be treating me differently because I'm a girl, because I'm a woman. Like, you think I can't take that heat? Of course I can. That's reality.
Facts. Facts.
Like,
Big facts.
no. So a mental toughness, I 100% relate to that. And but even outside of just being female, I think in general, when it comes to at least Canada, I can say, and youth sports, I find our generation is just so soft when it comes
Very.
to
Oh, 100%.
treating people. Like, I understand, like we have to give props to people going out there participating and everything, but you also have to understand that in life some people don't win, some people lose, and that's okay. And it's actually learning how to lose and how to overcome that loss that also builds that mental toughness,
Exactly.
right? So I just want to touch on that because you got me thinking about that. So that's a great point you made there.
It's true, bro. It's true. But like, I'm gonna like a little bit. I'm gonna touch a little bit on cricket Canada and like women. Like when I was growing up, bro. Like I'm telling you, like there was only one other girl that was my age playing in the Toronto district.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, I was very surprised that like a lot of the uncles and aunties so supportive. If any of their like sons tried to say anything, bro, yo, they would get shut down so quick. And I really respected that. I was like, honestly, that feels nice, you know, like they have their own daughters and stuff. Like if they could do that, you know, but how is one supposed to tell their son how to act? You know, like, I'm not one to tell them how to, you know, how to respect me, you know, like example, like when men like you know the jock strap. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big topic. I don't know about like in hockey they have jock strap as well, right? So a lot of the times like I would be there and I would take the time, I would have spandex underneath, you know, and for me, like I don't mind pulling my pants down, you know, but at the same time, like I don't want to make them uncomfortable. You know,
Correct.
I'm the only girl in this situation. I don't want to make them uncomfortable as well as like, you know, other men or uncles or stuff. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So I was taught like growing up as like a girl in a predominantly male like environment to be aware of what I wear or how I put my equipment on. Yet there was nothing for the boys, you know, like I was never like no, I didn't see any uncles or aunties be like, yo, you need to be aware of Achini being here, you know, like you can't just pull your whole ass pants down and I can see
Mm-hmm.
your ass and like
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like, no, like, I can look away. Like I don't mind doing that. But like for you to do the same, like I would expect the same, you know? Or for like I was taught that, but like I don't know if their parents or their moms or dads kind of taught that to them because again, it's like a reoccurring thing. I think cricket, I guess like everyone just puts it down, kind of put your guards on. Like for me, I don't mind. But like growing up though, like now when I'm 20, like 20, I'm like, yo, if I see guys like doing that, like I can look away. Like it's fine. I'm not mature enough. But when I was a kid though, like for me to be surrounded about that, it's kind of concerning. Like now that I think about it, I'm like, why hasn't anyone kind of explained that like not to like publicly do that, I guess. And I was like 12, 13, bro. Like, and to see that whole ass guys pull it, no problem. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of concerning. But that's okay. You know, apart from that, uncles and aunties, the majority of uncles and aunties, so very supportive though, 100%, which I'm really, really glad about.
That's great. I love that you had that support system, even like unknowingly.
Yeah.
You don't see that often, right? Like you already have to deal with the people that you're playing, and it's also like off the court, off the field that you got to worry about, and that's nice that you naturally had that environment to walk into. But also touching on to your point about um undressing with guys, I can tell you I 100% relate to that because I would go to training camps or play summer hockey in guys leagues, and if they didn't think to have like a girls dressing room or whatever, you would be put with the guys, and I was so used to it. So like you said, like you adapt to the
Yeah.
environment, right? So like sometimes I'd show up in like my Under Armour that I wear under my equipment, or I would
Yeah.
like change in the bathroom, or like just wear like a sports bra and something that was like, respectable, so it's not like showing your whole body. Meanwhile, these guys would be fully naked,
Yeah.
doing their thing. And it's just mental respect, but it's also thinking like you thinking of other people and understanding
Yeah.
that like look at your environment, look where you are. And to that point, we're talking 12, 13, 14. You should have the mindset to be able to logically think of other people. It should
Exactly.
not have to come from your parents at that age. But
That's true. That's true.
it's just so natural that they don't think about anyone else in the room.
What do you think
And
is
so
normal kind of thing too.
correct. And you know what too? You also you got to put everyone on blast here, even us, because did we call them out?
Facts.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Like how can you expect one, they should be doing it on their own. But if they're not recognizing the problem and we're not saying anything, then it's not going to seem like a problem.
It's true. It's true.
Right? So it goes both ways, right? You can't just put the blame on one person. You got to look at both sides of the story. But
It's
that's
true.
awesome. So you mentioned, since we're getting to the topic about having a support system, I'm curious to find out like how has the sport shaped who you are on an from an identity perspective, so outside of athletes.
So outside of athletes, honestly, bro, look, I don't think I would be the same person like mentally if it wasn't for sports. Like my either confidence, you know, staying humble, especially. Like I was humbled a lot, like growing up playing cricket, bro. Like you can think you're really good, but at the end of the day, there's gonna be someone that is better than you know. And I'm really,
100%.
really glad that was the case. You know, like I knew I was good at what I did, but there would always be a situation where you're like, no, someone else can be higher up in the order for your to bat. Someone else can bowl before you. Someone else can feel better than you. But that also comes as motivation, right? And I can put that into my life, you know, whether it is picking up a job, whether it is, and I'm gonna tell you like another topic apart from that is social anxiety. I've dealt with that for the longest time. Like I don't know about you, Ray, but like in high school, I did not talk much unless I was talked to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I chose like kind of to keep quiet, and I kind of like realized, you know, I'm the type of person that my dad always described me as like someone as like a very few words, you know, but I would get the point across, but it would be very few words. And I kind of realized that was kind of because I kept making sure I didn't have any change towards like my social interaction towards anyone. Kind of didn't. I kind of focused a lot on my performance
Mm-hmm.
compared to how I would make connections. And I never
Mm-hmm.
really realized that like connections are just as important as your performance, you know? And as soon as I realized that, as soon as I got that, which wasn't that long ago, I'm not gonna lie to you, like not even a year or two ago, until I realized like, hey, like you could be confident in cricket. Why can't you be confident like that in person or to whoever you talk to? You know, it doesn't need to be only in your cricket environment. Like you can definitely move it towards your whole life, you know? And I don't know about you, like for me, I've always had a problem with, you know, talking to grown-ups. Honestly, like it was hard for me for the longest time because, you know, you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want them to think of you another way. And then after I realized, I'm like, hey, you are a good person. If you say what you need to say, if you're honest, then what can they say against you? And even if they said something against you, you need to take it regardless, you know? Like you have to be tough enough to do that. And through sport, like through cricket, I definitely learned that through that.
That's awesome. That's a great, absolute great spiel there. I will have to say, like, you kept me grounded in that. I absolutely resonated with everything you just said. I think one key takeaway there is looking at understanding the difference between confidence and cockiness in
Yes.
sport. And I think that's a real thing. Like you don't have to have a big head
No.
when you're playing or nothing like that. You can be good and you know you're good. When you're good, you know you're good. But
Yeah.
there's no reason to bring other people down because of it, right?
Exactly.
If anything,
Exactly.
you should be hyping everyone up and saying, "Yo, like let's do this together, like let's all improve here because you're all going to be better at the end of the day, especially in team sports. Like
Yeah.
you literally need everybody to be good to perform well.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then you should be wanting everyone to be their best selves. Like it's not just about you,
Yeah.
right? People have to understand, like I always talk about in the show, getting out of your personal bubble and looking around
Yeah.
and changing that perspective, and you recognize like collectively coming together, you're so much better, right?
It's true. It is actually really true. I'm
Mm-hmm,
glad you put it
100%.
really well, actually. That's true. You know, confidence versus cockiness. That's a big topic, I think. And I don't know about, you know, I know it's a big topic for men, but I think for women as well, it can also be a big topic because as much as you think like women would have a little bit more remorse for each other, it kind of isn't the case sometimes. You know, it kind of comes from the athlete itself for them to see whether or not, and it's kind of, you know, I kind of think about it now, right? Like honestly, like I don't know if the people that are cocky know that they're cocky. You know, like sometimes I kind of wonder that. I'm like, do they know? You
Mm-hmm.
know, like, or who's gonna humble them? You know,
Correct.
it's kind of, that's like the big question. You know, whether or not, and like I kind of thought about that if I ever wanted to captain Cricket Canada. I'm like, how is one supposed to humble someone in a respectful way without kind of destroying them at the same time? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
not the nicest thing to hear, obviously.
No.
But someone needs to be open minded. Like, how are you supposed to get someone to be open minded, like to realize their mistakes, but not see it as an attack? That's what I would like kind of wonder.
For me, that's a great point. When I'm thinking about that, what I'm thinking about is you have to think of both people in the situation. The person giving that feedback and the person accepting the feedback. So
Yeah.
regardless of what you're saying, positive or negative, that person needs to understand how to take feedback and how to take criticism. That is a big skill that you need to learn. And I think like when you talked about mental toughness earlier, that's directly associated with that, like taking feedback and criticism from like parents if you had like a bad game or something, or coaches coming at you, like learning how to take that is like the very first step on intercepting that, building that mindset. And then in terms of like how do you communicate that as a leader,
Yes.
it's understanding the difference between, I think it's not even the difference, I think it's the intent. Are you coming at someone to build them up, or are you coming at someone to bring them down?
Yes. Yes.
Right? And when people see your intentions as pure, like, no, look, I'm trying to help you here and I'm trying to show you this is the gap, they're eventually like, okay, it's going to sting at first because of course it's something negative, it's not a positive, it's not a positive light. But if they have that mental toughness and they have that maturity level to understand the difference between someone bringing you down and coming at you versus someone giving you constructive criticism, that's what will build them up.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna take that in, you know?
Yeah. I'm glad.
If I ever lead Canada, bro, if I ever lead it, I'm gonna keep that up top because it's true. You know, you never know because sometimes they can take it to heart, but it's right. But it's right. It's how they take it and how you approach that. It's true. It's
Correct.
true.
But I also, that also gets me thinking on what is your responsibility? You've done your job by communicating effectively.
Right.
It is up to them of how they take it.
That's true.
Right? Like you can dish it out all you want, but how they respond is up to them, right? Like that has nothing to do with you. And like of course, like you're just a genuine person if you feel bad about it, if they take it in the wrong way. That's just you showing how much you care. But you have to understand the responsibility. Like that's not your responsibility. You've done more than your job by looking out for them.
That's true, bro.
Right?
True.
But yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about, I was curious to get your insight on, is because you got me thinking about this earlier, is we talked about cockiness and we talked about confidence, and we're talking about genders here, like male and female. And one thing that has really struck my mind here is how you have to represent yourself as a female among males.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're kind of getting what I'm kind of dishing out here, but it's just talking about how, I don't know if this was the same for you, but for me, I had to like put on a different version of Ray when I performed with men versus when I performed with women.
It's true. It's true. It's true. I kind of understand what you're trying to get at now. I understand the question. So, what I would say, like for me, definitely the change, the difference. I think me as an athlete playing in a sole men's environment compared to a women's environment, completely different. I think cricket players. And I think that's kind of me having to adjust to the gender. Quite frankly, I have to adjust to the gender. But I think I realized that men kind of get to the point right away. And then on top of that, they really do appreciate talent right away. You know, apart from how you look, I know there are situations where our like looks and everything comes into play. But apart from looks and everything, like I don't know, but like I kind of consider myself a little bit of an ugly kid growing up, but that's okay, you know. But then I kind of realized like, yo, like they kind of recognize talent, you know, and once they recognize talent, they really do put forth the time or the genuine effort to tell you or to help you. But again, it comes to a point where like, are men trying to tell you what to do or do they want the best for you? Is what I kind of wonder sometimes. You know, because there were situations where when I was growing up, I was maybe 13, 14, where other guys like my age or slightly older would feel the need to coach me. And I'm like, I have my coaches, you know, I have people that I listen to, you know, and I kind of learned like through multiple coaches. Like you go through a lot of coaches through cricket, and I'm assuming hockey as well, because a lot of it is technique. a lot of cricket is technique. So you go through a lot of coaches. They're always going to tell you you can choose whether or not to take that information or you don't have to. But at that age, where you're 13, 14, where older kids or older guys that play the same sport are trying to tell you what to do, is kind of hard to be nice in a sense, to be like, I appreciate your helping me, but at the same time be like, for you to like try and coach me right now in an hour session, I don't think I would really improve as much compared to if an actual coach was kind of helping me out. So for me to like kind of figure out how to say no, I could never say no for sure. Like growing up in that environment, for me to say like no, like you know what, like I think I'm good on my own, it was kind of hard for me to do. Yeah.
So why do you, sorry to interrupt you, why do you feel that it was hard to say no? Like, what is the fear behind that saying no in that environment?
I thought it was like saying no would give me kind of see it as a weakness, honestly. Because as it was, like for me to identify as a woman in a predominantly male environment as it was, like I had to prove myself, I think, as it was. So to say no or to deny something, I saw it as me being like too cocky. Like I'm a girl like learning in a men's environment. I kind of saw it as cocky to not accept that they're trying to help me, and I thought that was the most difficult. But like, other than like coaching necessarily, other than that, like for my own like well-being, like yeah, I could say no. But when it came to like training or or insight, I kind of tried not to say no, or I don't think that's right. I would take it in as an athlete, but until someone told me around like the age of like 13, 14, of where they were like, you have the choice to take in information how you wish. As a cricketer especially, coaches can tell you a billion things, but at the end of the day, it's what works for you that'll be the biggest difference.
I completely agree. It's two things there. One, the knowing who your coach is, and not being able to distinguish other individuals' kind of intent. Like, are you really trying to help me, or are
Yes.
you trying to like mansplain me? Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to do? So that understanding the difference there, I 100% agree, and I completely relate to not being able or feeling comfortable to say no. Like, no isn't an option,
Yeah.
because it puts you in a negative light, so you kind of just do it and take it, but at the cost of yourself, right? And your own performance, because you're just wasting your time when you could be working and grinding and working on your own performance as effectively as you can.
Exactly.
So I 100% relate to that, and I'm really glad you mentioned that. That's definitely good insight.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's head in more into, let's talk on the personal side. Let's get outside of cricket, but still in the realm of sports here, and let's talk about diversity here. I would like to get your perspective on representation of yourself for the communities that you're a part of, BIPOC, LGBTQ, females, etc., and how you see that represented in cricket, in sport, however you want to take it. I'm just curious to get your insight there.
So growing up playing cricket and like struggling with my sexuality too, I would say I refrain from it at all costs. Like I don't know about you, but like in a men's like environment, like with people of color especially, it's not easy for them to accept things like that. And for me itself, like it was hard for me to accept it in the first place, and for me to be like, who's gonna defend me? You know, at that point, that was always the question: who's going to defend me? Will I feel comfortable? Will this kind of teeter me away from my top performance? So I honestly, like, I'm like, until what, like, SD Lauder was when I kind of came out about it. But other than that, I refrained from it all the whole time. I had to sit down, like, my girlfriend, like, right now, and tell her, like, hey, like, I kind of need that privacy for myself, because it's a lot to deal with, to be honest. To be publicly out about it, it is a lot to deal with. Whether who's going to think what, And then after that, I realized I'm like, as much as I could be worried about what people think, I'm kind of at the age now where I'm confident with who I am as an athlete as well as a person. So I shouldn't worry too much. But definitely growing up in like that environment, that cricket environment. It was hard, so hard, bro. I'm telling you, 100%. Like I would refrain from it all the time because you hear the slurs, you hear like the boys saying like random stuff, like the amount of gay jokes, like it's crazy. It's crazy. And I'm like, I also used to ignore it. You know, honestly, I could honestly say right now, like I would agree to some just for them to be like, nah, she's not gay. You know, like I would honestly say it because at that point in my life, I was like, yo, like, do I want people to know? Do I want them to be like, yo, she like when she walks onto the field, you know, that's all people think about. And that's all I thought about, you know, all the whole time. And then I realized I'm like, yo, like, why are you gonna let them determine your performance? Why are you gonna let them determine how you're gonna perform as an athlete based off of your identity outside of cricket? You know? Like don't let that be the point where it stops. So definitely I would say I don't know, how about like in hockey? Was it talked about a lot, like during in the organizations, like whether it's rep or you know national? Was it talked about a lot? Because I'm not too sure about hockey to be honest with you.
Before I answer your question, first of all, I want to applaud you because thank you for having the courage for allowing us to know your full self.
Thank you. Thank you.
I very much appreciate that for you feeling comfortable enough to be open and to let us really get to know who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Really, it means a lot. It really does.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't be thanking me, man. Trust me. Thank yourself. Thank yourself. But to answer your question, I can relate on the on the people of color perspective in sport because I would say Canada's definitely different from the US, okay? Especially from a black perspective. Um, being black in Canada, being black in America is they have their similarities, but there's also extreme differences. I will say I've dealt with my share of slurs, actions that shouldn't have happened, unfair and unequal treatment, like you name it. Like it was there. It was a lot more subtle and definitely not to the extent that many others have experienced, but that doesn't discount
No,
those
not at all.
experiences, right? Like it's still
Yeah.
there. For me, I think it was kind of like what you were kind of touching on, where like on the ice, on the court, on the field, it didn't really matter when you're a kid. When you're a kid, it's just about like you're just trying to play. That's
Yes.
just what it is. Like you're just showing up to play. And like of course people notice it, you. You're among like in hockey, for example. I was among all white people. Like you're going to see me. Like it's not
Yeah.
like it's not a secret or anything. It's just people didn't really say anything to my face about it when I was a kid, so I didn't really touch upon it. And then like as I grew up, once you get like you said 12, 13, 14, people start really identifying themselves and you start really going towards your culture and just or wherever you see fit.
Yeah.
And once you start noticing those things, you kind of you notice looks, you notice other treatment that was overlooked before.
Yeah.
So I say that definitely goes into the sport, but I never talked about my identity being black. I never did. I kind of just I would never say like, hey, like my name's Ray and I'm black or anything. Like
Yeah.
I didn't it had nothing to do with me. It was kind of like, well, you can see my skin color, you get the point. And I didn't talk about it. I was just there to play hockey and that was it. But as I ended my career late high school, I will definitely say like I have regret in not embracing who I am because I was fortunate to grow up in a position where looking back I would have been more comfortable being who I am,
Right.
right? So every experience is different. It depends, right? There's no discounting it, but I will say like it depends where you are in terms of Canada, US, other countries, but I will say this for sure and I will emphasize it. It is not a perfect world in Canada.
No, no, bro. I can no. Like all the stuff that's been coming up recently, it's definitely not a perfect world. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I started like my cricket career compared to my education. Definitely got pushed a little bit cause my first year for university after I got out of high school, went to Queens, and it did not go well for me, bro. I'm telling you right now, it just didn't work in the sense that like I would walk the campus And people would stare at me and I'm like, listen, like, why? First of all, why? And then second of all, like, even if I was an international student, why do you feel the need to stare at people like that? Period. Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. And like the people that I dealt with, the lack of kind of culture, it kind of pushed me away and it kind of pushed me deeper into a hole too. Until I took myself out of this situation, I finally did, because my mental health was going like a full downhill while I was at Queens. As soon as I took myself out of that situation, bro, the way that my mental health skyrocketed was unreal. And I went to York after that. And York, you see the diversity, and people don't look at you like that, for what? And I think about it now and it enrages me. I'm like, why? Like, I was Canadian born and raised, regardless of where I was raised, where I was born. Why do you feel the need to do that? This doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any logical sense to me.
I completely understand that. Let me tell you, I wanted to go to Queens. I applied to Queens. I believe I was waitlisted for their commerce program, something like that. But let me tell you, blessing in disguise, where everything happens for a reason, because I'm at U of T now,
Yeah.
and I remember visiting the Queens campus, and I say, this is a lovely school. I just feel completely out of place.
Mm.
And then when I came to U of T, it wasn't that I felt more in place, it's that I could see people who look like me and that I could relate to. That's what you say, representation matters. Like, it does, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one wants to feel out on the outside, or like I'm not like special or like unique because I'm Black.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
that's not what it is. Like, you should want to get to know me. Yeah, I want to embrace the culture. Beautiful. I love that. I'm here to share that. And I want to see those experiences from where you're from too. But
Exactly.
I'm not like, I hate this term. I'm not exotic.
Bro, bro. I can't even start with exotic, bro. Why? I get it. Like, we're our skin tone is beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. But for us to be categorized as exotic, I don't know, man. To me, it doesn't sit as well with me. It
Yeah,
doesn't
me
feel
too.
comfortable. Nah.
100%. That I wanted to mention that because I know that sits deep. That sits deep.
It really, really does. It's crazy.
That's
It's crazy.
awesome. Okay, so let's talk more into, if you mind sharing. If you don't, you're uncomfortable, feel free, we can move on. But I would love to touch on how you kind of overcame that mental health slump, and you were able to get out of that, if you're comfortable to share that.
Oh, definitely. So let me start where it kind of happened, where it kind of like really, like, I was really in a rut. It was after ICC American qualifiers, so we played against USA. So that whole tournament was to determine whether or not International Cricket Council should fund us, should give us support. That was very crucial for us to do well in that situation. And to be honest with you, like, our team didn't prepare as well as they should have going into it. Like, the Americas, like the US versus how we prepared was completely different. The US prepared for the last 2 years. We prepared in 4 months. The big,
Wow.
huge difference. Yeah. So that took a huge mental, like, a mental kind of downhill for myself, because I trained my whole life, for that moment, for me to represent Canada. And when I was 12, I mentioned, I didn't get to represent Canada because they told me I was too young. And then when I did end up getting that opportunity, we only got 4 months to do it, 4 months to prepare, and team chemistry it wasn't there naturally. You have to work on those things, you have to build those things, and it just wasn't there. So after we didn't do well, I was like, bro, why did I keep my education? Why did I link my education with cricket? Like, that was the part that really got me. I was like, I'm like maybe 3 or 2 years behind, I thought at the time, compared to where I should be. And that took a huge mental health deficit for myself, because I was like, yo, where am I supposed to be? What can I do? Or what other opportunities are going to come for me? Because as soon as we lost, all opportunities stopped and it kind of headed towards America. So Cricket Canada was kind of left here. So that included me being left here where I didn't know what to do, you know? and my education was kind of, I felt like it was so behind, you know. So after that, I realized I'm like, hey, like I was like, I had to take a break from cricket for the last like year and a half. But I'm gonna be honest with you, like I did not like play cricket at all because I was like, what's most important right now is for me to figure out my education as well as my mental health. And I never took the time to really sit myself down and be like, hey, like you've been diagnosed. You need to get it managed. You know, and the biggest thing I've learned, you know, in that rut was like you can't cure depression. You know, at the end of the day, you can't cure it, but you can manage it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the biggest thing that kept me, that kind of took myself out of that place and been like, nah, like you need to keep going. You know, like you're young. Like this is kind of like my prime too. Like I should be in my prime around like 20s to 25s. I saw myself as my prime. You know, and based off of how I was like, yo, like I'm gonna be honest with you, like I wanted to quit. I wanted to be like, hey, like I'm done. You know, for that year and a half, I was like, for a long time, I was like, I'm done. You know, like I couldn't deal with it, and I was like, this is too much for me to handle. So I kind of took myself aside, kind of told my parents about it. You know, my friends about it, and then kind of told me about it, like, yo, this is good for you to focus on yourself. You know, but maybe not think about quitting necessarily now. So as soon as I took that step away from it, you know, the direct problem as it was, you know, the root cause of it,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, boom, if you figure out your education, which I did now, which I'm very glad. I also got my life organized, you know. Usually I would say I am a pretty organized person, but when you're going through all of that stuff, bro, everything goes out the window. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when you wake up, you're like, you could be so organized, you know, and if you wake up and your mind is telling you, nah, bro, like this isn't it, just stay in bed. It just doesn't matter. So as soon as I realized like now is the time to make the change. And one of the biggest things I would say, like in that rut, was I stopped working out. So you can only imagine the deficit it can cause to someone that's like kind of worked out their whole life, you know, always playing cricket, you know, all of a sudden this huge like stop. I was like, wow, why did I do that? And thinking about it now, I'm like, wow, like why did I stop playing? Like why did I stop working out? And I'm like now I'm like, you know what? It made sense why I wasn't, you know, I just couldn't do it. But
Mm-hmm.
now that I've kind of taken the time to manage it, I kind of realized that like a lot of my medicine comes from exercise itself, like how beneficial it could be to your mental health as well as physical being. Exercise is unreal. I really do like I at first I was like, you know what, like I ended up like resenting it, bro. Like cricket and exercising, I ended up resenting it. I was like, yo, this is not for me. Like I'm so low right now. I cannot tell you that was an all-time low. But after I realized, I'm like, yo, you know, you have to manage it. At the end of the day, you can't just be like that. You know, you have to. At the end of the day, you have to do it. But then finally, I did it. You know, I'm right now. I'm in a better place, 100% a better place. I'm like the best place I've been to in my life right now. I think I am in terms of my mental health. I'm really glad. But definitely that rut, bro. It was all about management. You know, about my illness. You know, coming to terms with it, ending up with solutions that worked for myself. You know, and I know that like you can ask people what they do. You know, but at the end of the day, it's kind of what works for you. And like I had kind of needed to take that time in that year and a half to figure out like what does work for you, Chidi, and what doesn't work for you. You know, and for the longest time I was like, yo, like why don't I just wake up like 8 a.m., you know, do it like right away, wake up 8 a.m., you know, and get my day started. And then I realized, I'm like, yo, that doesn't work for me if I can't sleep, you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta adjust to what makes, like, it kind of gets you back into play. And as soon as I realized, I'm like, yo, I kind of made a little mini schedule for myself, you know, and kind of got understood what type of management works for me. It was the biggest turnaround for sure, for sure.
Wow. That's a phenomenal story. I thank you so much for sharing that because it's stuff like that raw true story that needs to be told, especially
Yes.
in our generation because everyone goes through something. And it's understanding one, you're not alone.
Mhm.
Two, you can get through it. And three, your experience is unique. Just
Yeah.
because other people go through stuff might be similar doesn't mean yours doesn't matter. Like, as you said, whatever works for you, how you manage that, how you get out of that on your own time, that's what it's going to take. So I applaud you, one, for sharing that. Thank you for that. And
Yeah.
also thank you for explaining and really enunciating the fact that you need to do what's right for you, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. And sometimes, for an athlete, that's so hard to be like, take a step back. So I applaud you for not only taking that step back and recognizing that, but for coming back.
Yeah.
That in itself, wow, like absolutely applauding. I'm
Thank you.
applauding right now because
Thank
that
you.
is
Thank you.
awesome. That is awesome. Okay, that's great. So this is great conversation. The one thing I want to leave off, the way that I tend to leave off these episodes, is with some sort of motivation or inspiration or lesson here. So what's kind of your takeaway on, be it diversity and inclusion, being an athlete, whatever you want to take away here that you want our listeners to know here?
I would say definitely don't ignore your feelings at the end of the day. You're gonna be thinking about different things. You're gonna be thinking about bad things and you're also gonna be thinking about good things. But for you to figure out how to manage that, not necessarily figure it out, but trial and error, I would say, is the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to like kind of fail too. Because to find out, for me myself, like personally, to find out what helped me manage my like depression was trial and error. Not everything worked for me. Not everything that's worked for someone else with depression worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally it was kind of had to cater specifically to myself, and then on top of that, realizing that you need to take the step back. I think that was the biggest thing I would say to like any athlete is your performance can be very good, but at the end of the day, like don't let yourself be trapped knowing that your mental health isn't there too. And kind of like be okay with getting help. I think I would definitely, advise that too, because it's hard. I'm telling you, like with for myself especially, I was very shy, like I didn't want to talk about my problems.
Mm-hmm.
But then after I realized, like, yo, I can't keep ignoring it because it only gets worse. And you need to understand how to manage yourself. And ultimately, it comes down to your own self-care too. Self-care is the most important thing I think you can do as an athlete and as a person too. You deserve to have that self-care, to have the time to think about yourself. I think we're in everyday life, you kind of worried about other people, or who you need to take care of, whatever age, like it could be moms, it could be, new athletes, but to take that time, I would say is definitely worth it. 100% worth it in the long run, because you can see the difference. You'll see how much of a different person you are now compared to if you didn't adjust it, you know?
That's awesome. That's a great takeaway. I'm going to add on to that and say, with everything you're saying here, it's take care of yourself in all respects. We touched on a lot today in this interview, right? So we're talking about taking care of your mental health, taking care of how you treat people, how you're treated, and
Yeah.
understand, this is what I really love that you said. It's understand what you deserve,
Yeah.
because you have to understand your worth in order to get that. If you're seeing yourself as down here, that's where
Exactly.
you're going to stay. But at the same time, humble yourself and don't think
Exactly.
you're some next person up here. Keep yourself grounded, humble, but confident. And that's really the key here. So this is a great conversation, Achini. Thank you for coming on the show. I absolutely loved having you here. We have to have you back because the
Well,
conversation's great.
100%. And I really like applaud you for starting a podcast like this, bro. Honestly, as soon as I heard about it, you told me a little gist of the podcast and what it's about. I really do respect it, bro. Like this is the stuff we need to talk about, for our generation at least, for mental health as well. For to see, and I'm glad that you gave me the comfortable space to be raw about my whole athlete experience. If it was someone else, I don't know if I would be this open. But I really do respect how you come across this podcast, bro, and the whole idea of this podcast is great, truly.
Thank you, thank you. Like I said, the point of this podcast is to giving people a voice and a platform to use that voice and to feel heard, because we all have stories to share, and that's our goal here. So thank you for sharing yours today, Achini.
No problem, bro. My pleasure. My pleasure.